Conflicting Desires Part 1. Luck had nothing to do with it. The topics Lith usually talked about with Yandra were too boring for professors and too difficult for assistants, so after a while, they would always be alone. Lith had waited until only those on guard duty were awake before showing her the sword. Why the fuss? The kingdom allows rangers to keep everything they find inside the lost city of Haril. That's because aside from the warden, forge master, and alchemical lab, there's nothing worth the trouble of entering that damn place. You hit the jackpot, and if you had told anyone else, they would have taken it away from you. Yandra explained. So I'm right, Haril is an academy. Since Yandra seemed more worried about his safety rather than his discovery, Lith decided to strike the iron while it was hot. Hush, young idiot, and yes, it was an academy. That's why now choosing a headmaster is such a big deal, and because only they can interact with the power core of an academy. The kingdom allows you to raid Haril because that way you are more likely to kill the creatures trapped inside its forest, and in case someone found something valuable, it gets snatched the moment they start researching its nature. Dragons and undead in an academy's forest? Who was the madman who devised such a dangerous environment? Lith asked, pretending to be flabbergasted. Does the name Arthur ring any bells? The Mad King, but why? Because he hoped that at least one of them held the secret of immortality. Clearly, he was right, but something went terribly wrong, and instead of subjugating them, the power core gained sentience and unleashed its prisoners against the academy staff. According to the chronicles, we lost several geniuses that day. Please, let's talk about this another time. I'm getting a headache. Rather, I have no interest in history lessons. I must avoid changing the topic, Lith thought. I still don't understand. The undead courts use runes and so did the ODI. Why is the sword I found such a big deal? Damn it, since you decided to trust me, I can tell you at least this much. Do you remember how hard enchanting the orichalcum was? Yandra asked. Yes, it took me countless attempts and a lot of effort. Why? Back when forge mastering didn't exist, the ancient runes were used to imbue a spell inside anything they were carved onto, but they were delicate and expensive. After Silverwing's legacy became available, it was discovered that they could still be used in the preparatory phase of forge mastering to lower its requirements. It makes sense, Lith said. The enchantment of the blade is too strong for the mana crystals that were used to craft it, and such a cheap metal is supposed to be unable to withstand powerful magical energies. Then you already have half the answer. What you lack is the other half. Runes allow weak metals to hold powerful spells, but when applied to powerful metals, like adamant, they are the only way to unlock their full potential. Without runes, once you use the bonding spell to embed purple crystals on adamant, its mana flow becomes so strong that it becomes impossible to forge master it. Do you understand now why it's such a big deal? Yandra's eyes were dead serious. She kept looking around, to be sure that no one was overhearing them. Yes, thank you, Lith replied. Thanks to Boar we didn't use the adamant forge for the skinwalker armor. Lith thought, we've dodged more than one bullet there. By my maker, now sure it makes sense why runesmithing is a secret. This way, only royal forge masters can use Davris and adamant to create the ultimate artifacts, giving the royal family the monopoly over them. Solus replied. Even better, we now know that runesmithing is part of the preparatory phase, so it has to be performed either after or before bonding. That's an invaluable information that will save us countless failures, Lith pointed out. That's enough for tonight. Please, don't ask me any more about runes unless you accept becoming my disciple. If anyone discovers what I told you, I might be charged with high treason, and my whole family would be wiped out. Yandra tried to stand up, but Lith stopped her. I can't make you any promises about the apprenticeship. I like going solo. Yet we have yet to finish your treatment. Your life force has recovered enough to allow me to further rejuvenate your body. Yandra didn't miss how the timing of her treatment, casually, matched that of her lesson about runes, and she didn't care. She remained silent the whole time, admiring Lith's focus and the subtle changes in her own physique at the same time. Shameless kid, I bet that runes are the price he was hinting at when I asked him to rejuvenate me. Either I'm too paranoid, or this whole conversation was staged from the beginning. I must make him my disciple, Yandra thought. Crafty bastards achieve greatness whereas goody two-shoes die early because they're too stupid. That's how Mogar spins. I must be careful to feed Lith enough information about runes to keep him hooked, but not so much that he can work the rest out by himself. By the time they were done, Yandra's body once again had the prowess of its 30s, even though she still looked like a 60-year-old woman. She was also exhausted from the treatment and fell asleep the moment her head touched her pillow. 2 days later, while planting patches of moss inside Kula, Lith left Solus inside the military compound. With her mana sense, she could easily dodge the Odie's traps as well as the other members of the expedition and find the perfect place to assume her tower form. I'm honestly conflicted about this Floria thing, Solus thought while dodging and copying the Odie's arrays at the same time. On one hand, I'm happy he is finally opening of his own will with someone. Sadly, Protector and I do not count. On the other hand, I'm jealous. I would like to be able to spend some time with another man, just to see how Lith takes it. I'm feeling a bit neglected recently. To be fair, Lith would always talk with her and ask her opinion about everything. Even in that moment, he was working hard to fuel her with mana despite their distance, to make sure that Solus wasn't forced to spend an ounce of her own life force. When she finally found a spot with no arrays and hidden behind a building tall enough to completely eclipse the tower, she made her attempt. What the heck, she thought, the mana geyser is almost completely spent, but this doesn't make sense. It doesn't take that much energy to fuel these many buildings and their arrays. Even when we perform our experiments, my tower consumes barely a fraction of the geyser's energy flow. For so little world energy to reach the surface, there must be something below that is siphoning it near its source. That's why the ODI use the cables. It's not a design flaw so much as a way to divert the minimum amount of energy necessary from whatever they are doing. Conflicting Desires Part 2. Despite her initial panic, Solis quickly regained her cool and started to look around Kula, searching for clues about the nature of what could possibly require an entire mana geyser as a power source. Yet the building's repetitive nature gave her nothing to work on. On top of that, between the internal and external arrays, she was unable to pry inside the military compound with her mystical senses. Solis, are you alright? I'm getting tired here. What's taking you so long? Lith's message made her realize she had lost track of time. I'm peachy, sorry to make you worry, I'll be there in a while, she replied while rushing to Lith's position. When her detailed report received a lukewarm reaction, she felt forced to ask. You're taking this way better than I expected. Not even a swear word. What makes you so confident about our predicament? Whenever we found a city built above a mana geyser, we have always been forced to make camp on another geyser. I hoped that the ODI might had not been able to fully exploit the world energy, but the more we are discovering about them, the more I realize mine was naive thinking. Lith replied. We must consider Kula as if it was a lost city. If there are any more flesh factories around, then the number of our enemies is nigh infinite. It was a long shot and we failed, nothing to mope about. Lith mind shrugged. The following day, after lunch, the professors shared with the rest of the expedition team their discoveries about the golem's remains. Constructs were the apex of a mage's work, so they had pooled their resources to grasp how dangerous the ODI were at the time they had founded Kula. I'm sorry, but we have only bad news, Professor Gaku said. After a thorough analysis, we concluded that even though the golems had an outdated design, they had all the necessary firepower to wipe us out if not for our protective arrays. The constructs weren't as powerful as modern ones, but their ability to process information and coordinate their attacks was something unprecedented. At first, we couldn't understand how it was possible, but after receiving Archmage Ernest's report, everything changed. Orion is an Archmage? Lith was flabbergasted. Everyone always referred to him as Lord Ernest and I've never seen him wearing a robe. It's not that surprising after he created the Gatekeeper so easily, crafted the anti-Balcor weapons, and him being a royal forge master. It's just that the title of Archduke is probably more important. Now shut up and listen, Solis said. We examined the internal structure of the golems again and discovered cerebral fluids and brain matter mixed with their power core fragments. Our hypothesis is that they contained a forge-mastered brain. She took a pause, to let her audience understand the implications of their discovery. Do you mean they were alive? Marak asked. His tone was more curious than disgusted. An organ can't survive for centuries without a body. Gaku shook her head. Yet it's likely that the regenerative properties of the golem kept them intact and in turn used them to compensate for the lack of improvisation that arrays have. The reason I'm telling you this is because if we face more defensive mechanisms with an odd behavior, then they are likely to be bioweapons, just like the golems. The only silver lining is that if we destroy their biological component, they should become inactive or at least have their abilities crippled. Forge mastering organs? Solis, is that even possible? Lith asked. In theory, no. The mana of the person receiving the enchantment and that of the one casting it would just cause a mana poisoning, unless. Floria made Solis's same objection, but out loud, receiving a shocking answer. You're right, Captain Ernest. It's indeed impossible unless the Forge Master sacrifices their life to become part of their own creation. Nishal replied. That's sick. What mage could possibly do such a thing? Floria was hating her mission more with each discovery they made. She had the impression of looking at the twisted reflection of what the Griffin Kingdom might have become if the Mad King hadn't been stopped. A dying mage, for example. Yandra replied. Once you're old, you've got nothing to lose. Or simply a mage without any other choice. If you think about it from a ruler's perspective, you're turning a mage in an eternally loyal and unfaltering guardian. Forge mastering my own flesh is something I have never thought about. Lith was shocked. Maybe that's my solution. Or not, Solis said, emitting a retching sound. We have no idea what the aftereffects of the procedure would be and you have only one shot at it. I believe that altering your life force might also alter your mind to the point you became another person. Lith's mind stopped in its tracks. After arriving on Mogar, undeath seemed the perfect solution to his problems, based on Dungeons, U0026 looting rulebook at least. Reality had begged to differ enough that Lith had been forced to discard the possibility of turning himself even into a lich. Okay, sorry, we'll think about it when we have more data, he replied, making her sigh in relief. After contacting the headquarters, our first priority is to find anything we can about forge mastering life force and its opposite process. Sacrificing lives to give inanimate matter a mana flow. Everything else is of secondary importance. Gaku continued. Aside from guard duty, all other activities are suspended. Floria said once the professors finished their debriefing. Rest and recover because tomorrow we'll split into groups again and resume our search. Professor Nishal, what's our array's status? Better than ever. I brought them to such a level that they are almost as good as permanent arrays. Perfect. Can I come with you then? Kyla asked. Absolutely not. 3 days of training are just like 3 days of a diet, barely a start. Floria replied. As you are now, you would just be a liability. That's not true. I can warp you all to safety, without the need for Lith to remain behind. Are you really willing to use him as a scapegoat every time something goes wrong? Kyla's words stung at Floria. Damn it, from her point of view what I did was heartless. Kyla has no idea of what Lith can do, and to be honest, neither do I, Floria thought. No, I'm not, but that doesn't change the fact that you can't come with us. Retreat is our last resort, which means that during the fight someone should protect you. Or do you think you were capable of defending yourself? She actually said. Fine. Kyla stomped her feet and walked away before saying something that she was sure she would have regretted the moment after such cruel words escaped from her mouth. Raynor followed her, trying to calm her down. The youth was charmed by both her ingenuity and strong character. At the same time, however, he was scared by her reckless attitude. What's wrong with you? Your sister is only trying to protect you, to protect us assistants. We are not trained for actual combat, so the least we can do is not drag them down, he said.